Hi there, everybody. How are you going this morning, evening, or whatever it is, wherever you are? Um, yes, Max, that's right. It's the one button make game demo. For those of you who don't know, that's a joke. Uh, lots of plugins. People want to make their whole game, and that's just not how it works. But anyway, we're here looking at Motion Symphony. Now, what you are seeing there, if you've been waiting for it to start, is just automatic running. I wasn't actually controlling that, so that's why I was running off the edge and stuff. I'm just going to turn that off now that we're actually here. Let's see if I can think and do things at the same time. I'll just turn off the automatic trajectory. Okay. So this session is basically just a Q&A slash demonstration. We had one yesterday, and I think it went pretty well. Answered a lot of questions. People had a lot of questions that are, the normal kind of questions that you ask for something like Motion Symphony, and yeah. So if don't feel free to ask the same questions again. I'll answer them again. There'll be different people in the stream, so that's all fine. But yeah, this is Motion Symphony, particularly the motion matching. That's the core of the plugin. There are other nodes, but probably mainly going to focus on the motion matching since it's such a large feature compared to the others. But yeah, if any questions, fire away. This is the motion matching in the works, as you can see, running around and such. Now, if there aren't any questions, I am just going to continue to add new animations to the set. I've got some strafe animations, I've got some sprint animations ready to go. So you can see a bit of the workflow as we go forward. But yeah, doesn't seem there's any questions just yet, so I will just keep going on with that. So if you haven't already seen, there's a whole bunch of sort of assets that you use to control motion matching with Motion Symphony. It's designed to be really modular. So I've decided to break things up between running and walking in this case. I could do running and walking together. I've done it in the past. That's also a valid way to do it. I just have done it in this way in this particular case. And I'll just show you the animation graph for this. Here it is. And it's a simple graph. We have idle and we have two states, and basically the entire locomotion run is run by this one motion matching node in run, and same with walk. Again, I could combine them into one. I just find in my case I like to be able to see the states, but you're gonna have to balance between what you separate into states and what you combine. In our idle node, we actually have a pose matching node, which is a Motion Symphony node, and the reason I've done this is because it's a staggered stance, so left foot forward, but you could stop either on your left or right foot forward. So this pose matching node, I've got an runtime mirroring enabled, so we can actually stop on either the left or the right foot. So that's basically, that's the example. It's very simple. It could be way more complex, but to get this kind of locomotion, obviously, without motion matching, you're looking at I don't know how many states, a lot of states. We'll show more advanced workflow with cut clips. Not in this. This is like a short Q&A. Like I'm not gonna have time to go into it. I do have the next quick start guide is, so I've done two quick start guides. The last quick start guide is going to be like a cut clip workflow, basically setting up a cut clip example from scratch. I can't unfortunately include it because I don't own any cut clips that I can redistribute. I've only bought ones off the asset store, but you should be able to do it quite simply. But it's not that tricky. The main difference is you need to set up some components and composites and blend spaces and do a few extra settings in the data, but yeah, that'll be on that quick start tutorial. But yeah, I'm gonna make another one of these motion data assets, and I'll call it md underscore strafe locomotion. Open it up and I'll add in my configuration. So if you haven't seen this before, the configuration is basically, I'll show you in in here. It's basically telling us what we want to match. It's a little asset with a little setup. It's bound to a skeleton. We can define our trajectory. We can define what bones we want to match. In this case, only 3. For those of you who are new to motion matching, you might find this like only matching 3 bones doesn't sound like it's enough, but it is. It is really enough for locomotion. You might have things like you might match hands for like maybe combat for a sword fighting or a boxing game or something like that. But yeah, so we basically bind it to a configuration. You can have different configurations between different motion matching nodes. That's fine, but it needs to be the same for this whole thing here. All right. I also got a calibration. Now, with the way that I've done calibration in Motion Symphony, it's largely automatic. Most of the time, the presets are going to be fine. So basically what calibration is, it's a bunch of weightings to sort of calibrate how the motion is synthesized. But yeah, as I said, most of the time the default is fine. The only real thing that you might change is the quality versus responsiveness ratio. You can make it more responsive or more quality. Those two things are kind of opposing ideas, but there's only so much you can go with that. The main responsiveness is going to come from your source animations. Any issues with 4 targets? Not that I'm aware of. Look, I don't actually have... It's hard to get sort of like dog animations or horse animations, but I can't see any reason why it would be any different, because motion matching has no concept of what a human being looks like. So as long as there's like natural motion in the animations and the source animations, it really should work. I can't see a reason why it wouldn't. But yeah, because like, yeah, under the hood, it's all a generic system. Anyway, so I've set up that, and I'm just going to pick my animations, and I'll type in strafe. Let's see what animations we have. So all of these animations, by the way, are included in the example project. So that doesn't get downloaded automatically when you get the plugin, but you can go to the example project GitHub, and you can actually get that there. There'll be links in the documentation. I'll chuck a link in right now, just so you guys can see. There it is. And also, while I'm doing links, I'll put a link to the documentation, because there's so much information there that I can't even go over in a stream. It's just too much information. So I'll link that as well. All right, strafing animations. We've got quite a few, but I need to only get my ones. Strafe, start, stop, walk. Yep, all these. There we go. So we can add them in here, and we get this list of animations that we've added. We can select them and preview them. We have a question. What's the ideal animation data to feed into this? 20 minutes, dance cards, or what? Thanks. Yeah, so the 20 minutes thing comes from, I guess, a GDC talk a while back. I think that's more than you need, to be honest. It really depends what you're going for. So let's have a look at one of the ones I've done already. So just, it depends. Like, are you going to have running and walking? Are you going to have jogging? Are you going to have also sprinting? Are you going to then have strafing? For each individual type of movement, I don't think it's that much. So what we've got a bunch of animations here, and they can be quite long. But the thing is, you're actually culling a lot of the data. So a lot of the data is sort of redundant. So sort of these loops in between the starts and the stops in this case, the information is kind of redundant. You generally tag it out. So if you are manually creating animations, then you're not going to need 20 minutes. However, you are going to probably want to make more of those animations than you normally would, because you need coverage. You need to have start stops in all directions. You need to have plants in all directions and all that kind of thing. There's no hard and fast number you can put on it. Generally, the more the better, but there's also, once you get used to it, you can start to reason, well, is this enough? But yeah, so I don't think it's that much. So what we've got roughly, so I'm mirroring all of this information here. So let's actually see how many poses are being played. I can check that. I'll just turn on some debug. So we'll do the search debug. So there's 10,000 poses being searched. So 10,000 poses, and what's our interval? we've got an interval of 0.05. So for every 1 second, there's 20 poses. Yep, so 20 poses every 1 second. Man, I'm not good at math off the top of my head. But yeah, you can do the math on that. So there's 10,000 poses, 20 poses a second, and figure it out. So, but yeah, even that, like, I could even cull some of that running stuff, because those poses are including the cold poses number. So even like all of this is all tagged out as do not use. I'm not going to use any of this. For example, in this animation, I'm only after the accelerations. So if you really wanted to be efficient and not have wasted data, you would just cut out certain parts. You'd need a little bit either side to get trajectories, but you wouldn't need, like, for example, I've got a T pose in here. You certainly don't need that. I've got all this walking, and then at the end my character turns around, and the only reason that's there is because during the mocap I had to turn around because I got to the end of the room. You could cut that out and just have single length animations from like here, including the 1 second before the movement and 1 second after the movement. That's my rule of thumb. I do have a guide. Actually, you know what? I'll link that as well. Docs. Let me find this guide and I'll link that to animation authoring. I made it originally for motion matching for Unity, but everything still applies. It's exactly the same concepts. There we go. Hello, Frito. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so let me continue with my strafing animations. A few less questions than last time. Last time they were firing off every second, but that's okay. It's hard to think and do this stuff at the same time, so maybe I'll actually get some of the strafing done. Alright, so we got a bunch of animations. I'll show you the kinds of animations we have. And when I did the strafing animation set, I was having doing a bit of experimentation because I wanted to get kind of like hip flexing going, and it does turn out really well, and hopefully we'll be able to see it. But see, I'm doing these like a circular strafing, so my character's facing this way, and I'm doing this circular strafing. I found strafing was a lot more challenging to get to work with motion matching because you've got so many different direction change combinations that you can do. All sorts of plants, back, forward, side, angles. You've got so many different directions, and then you can have like different, there's something like 48 possible transitions in reality. Any relationship between coverage requirements and quality responsiveness slider? Coverage requirements and quality / responsiveness slider. Well, I mean, look, the coverage, if you don't have coverage, what's going to happen is you're going to have gaps in your animation. And because this is motion matching, the idea is you match to a close pose and a close trajectory. If you don't have enough coverage, then you have to make the trajectory more important. So that means if you don't have enough coverage, you need to go to your calibration, and you need the slider to become more on the trajectory side, the more responsive side. This will help jump the pose gaps. But then, yeah, if you don't have enough coverage, jumping that pose gap is going to cause like a jump in your animation. So you're going to get much less quality. So yeah, if you don't have the quality, the coverage, you really are going to have to play with this, and yeah, you're just not going to get the same level of quality. That's just the nature of motion matching. Something that takes getting used to. It doesn't work at all like traditional animation, and I find there is quite a big learning curve. It's a common misconception I find among the community that motion matching is this one-click animation character done. Yeah, you can get 80% of the way there really fast, but it's not always going to be that simple. So yeah, okay, so I've added these animations. You know what, I'm just going to pre-process it. I'm not even going to look at it and change anything. Let's just see what happens with the raw input. I don't think it'll necessarily work well, but we'll find out. So I'll pre-process that. I won't use optimization yet. We can do that later. Sort of an iterative thing. So responsiveness brings blending in for coverage gaps. No, it doesn't bring blending. It just allows you to jump the gap because there's a gap in pose, and we've got this big cost function, and it wants to find the closest pose and the closest trajectory. So by increasing that responsiveness slider, it's saying, well, the trajectory part of that is more important, and therefore you're going to just get a jump in pose. At the moment, it's going to blend at the same rate using inertialization. You could increase your blend weight. You probably, your blend time. So if you do have low coverage, I recommend increasing your blend time. There's only so far you can go with that though, of course. It can't be too long, otherwise you're going to get really muddy animations. Alrighty. I'll go to my graph and let's chuck in this strafe. Now, again, I could have put this in the same motion matching node and then use traits to do stuff, but this is just for the sake of demonstration. I'm going to put it on a simple toggle. Because, I mean, ideally, you don't want to have a state for every single kind of motion. It's just that it's going to be a bit like fiddly to set up traits on a stream. Not that it's difficult, but you're not going to be able to see it so easily. So let's just get that over here and this over here. And I'm going to just make a variable. Let's call it strafe. If you've just, why is this not changing? Okay, doesn't want to change the name of the variable. Cool. I'll figure that out in a second. Alright, I'm going to copy my other motion matching node because it's kind of already set up. So I'll show you, since I'm just copying it and not setting it up from scratch. Actually, you know what? Let's set it up from scratch. I'll show you. So we can just create one, search motion matching. If I can spell right, that'd be great. There it is. I think there's something going on with my keyboard. Okay, there we go. I don't know what's going on there. Alright, so the main thing you get on the trajectory, on the motion matching node, is this trajectory, this desired trajectory. That's your main input. And that's kind of a variable that you input. Basically, your user input, your WASD or your joystick or whatever, generates a trajectory with the trajectory generator component. I'll show you that. So I've got this component trajectory generator. You can actually make your own if you know what you're doing with C++. And basically, we just set the input on that trajectory generator. In the example project, you see I've done a little bit of work to make it relative to the camera. So it's, yeah, so your input's relative to the camera. No big deal there. And we're basically setting that. And in our animation graph, under our event graph, I'm actually extracting that trajectory. So you can see here, trajectory generator, I call a function get current trajectory, and then I just set the trajectory variable, which you can see here, so type trajectory. And then we can just use that as an input into our strafing or our motion matching node. So I'll plug that in. You can either plug it in or bind it, doesn't matter, either way you like. We do need to add our calibration here. And we do need to set our motion data. So strafe locomotion. Alright, some questions. Theoretically, I can help Motion Symphony via state machines to achieve good results. Yes, you can. Look, if you've got so motion matching in Motion Symphony, I've made it to be like a tool that you can like put in somewhere in your graph. It's not like I didn't want it to be monolithic. It's not going to take over your animation graph. If you don't have the animations for a certain type of locomotion, then maybe you don't use motion matching for that thing. So maybe you have like a character that's a game where it's like exploration, but then when you want to go into combat, you want it to be really responsive. So maybe when it's in exploration mode, you've got some really high quality locomotion animations and you're just running around, and then you switch to combat, you go into your own system, or maybe not, maybe you use motion matching for that as well. The point is that it's modular. It's a tool that you use in your graph the way that you think it's going to work. the individual nodes, they just do one thing. They do what they say on the tin, and it's up to you to kind of decide how you want to use that in your animation graph. So maybe it is a bad idea to use it without mocap captured animations, but on the other side, I have really many animations and variations of. It's going to come up to testing. Again, that link that I set in the that I put in the comments to the Google Doc, that actually has a lot of information on that. If you do have cut clips that are got a lot of coverage, then that is going to help. When it comes to mixing and matching animations of like from different sets, it can be a little tricky because the poses can be really different. Again, it's going to come down to testing. Motion matching, like by its nature, isn't particularly fantastic for cut clips. However, I've done what I can in Motion Symphony to actually make it work at a baseline. And I have set it up with some clips from Kobold. He's an animation developer publisher on the asset store, on the marketplace, sorry. And it works fine. It's just not as good, right? You don't get all the complex movements. All right, hey man, I love your motion matching plugin for Unity. It has really streamlined my workflow and has helped focus on other things as a one-person dev team. Keep up good work. Yeah, cheers, man. Glad it's working for you, and hopefully Motion Symphony can do the same for many people on Unreal Engine. Yeah. Okay, so if I compile this now, it shouldn't have an error. Cool. And what are the settings? Yeah, we got things like update interval, so we're not updating every frame. If this is going to be a player character, you might make this something lower, right? So, once every 30 seconds. An AI, you might put it at, 0.1 to 0.5, depending on the LOD. You can change it at runtime because you can bind it. I won't go through every single settings here. You do have a blend time. Now, the blend time is just really small. It's intended just to cover the small gaps. So the idea with motion matching is to reduce the overall gap in animation transitions, and therefore you only need a small blend. Now, Motion Symphony uses inertialization for its blending, which means that it makes it much more efficient when it comes to synthesizing. So if you don't know what inertialization is, look it up. It's a UE4 feature. It's just a different method of blending. It's almost like a procedural post-process blending, and that goes there. But yeah. So we set that up. Now what else will I need? I probably need... that's all fine. Oh, I'll leave all these settings. So the only other thing I'm going to have to do for strafing is I'm going to have to switch the trajectory, and I'm also going to do this transition. See if I can add this variable now. Strafe. It doesn't want to call it strafe. Do I already have a variable called strafe somewhere? I'll change it to strafing. There we go. It must have not liked the name. Okay. So strafing, and we can transition back when we're not strafing. Well, we'll need more conditions, because we need to be able to get out of here. But I don't want to. You guys know how graphs work. I don't want to get into like setting up a full complex graph. And again, I would probably combine the running strafing and running and the strafing if I were you. You might. It depends how you want to separate things out. Maybe you separate it by speed. Maybe you separate it by style. I don't know. Or you could put every single thing of all your locomotion in one motion matching node theoretically, but that would become really difficult. Okay, so is there anything I missed on the questions? No. Cool. Alright, so the only thing we need to do is we need to flip a switch on the trajectory, and we also need to set that boolean there. So let's do that. I will open up the character. So we need a input. Actually, I need an input. Let's add in an input for strafing. So yeah, if you've just joined recently, we're just going through, I'm just doing examples, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Plenty of questions to ask, and I've got plenty of answers. And if you don't want to ask a question, check out the FAQ. It's very important. it's very important to understand what motion matching is before you dive in. So there's the FAQ. Okay, so walking and strafe. And this is just going to be, I'll hold down shift, I guess, because I'm already using control. Probably not the best button, but hey, that's fine. Okay, and we will find that strafe event. And we'll make the strafe variable here as well. And we can set that. So when we press it, strafing is true, and when we release it, strafing is false. Now the other thing I want to do here is on the trajectory generator, I need to change the mode. So there's the current mode. Let's see if this works, if I haven't messed it up. Okay, so the current mode, let me turn this debugging off. It's a bit distracting. Search debug 0. Okay, so the current mode, the facing angle of the trajectory points, you can see those little arrows on the green and trajectory. They tend to rotate to point in the direction that it's going. With strafing, that's not the case. You want it to face the way the camera's going, essentially. So we're going to change this trajectory to a... Am I just waiting for Epic to approve the item for sale now? Copyright text connected. Corrected? Yeah, I'm just waiting. That took me like a second to fix that. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, I did submit it, and I had to make a change. It was literally out of the 250 code files, there was one that had a copyright notice that said 2020 instead of 2020 to 2021. So I had to fix that. But yeah, literally whenever they click the button, it'll be available. Okay, so I feel like I should have done the sprinting first. That would have been a little bit easier. Can you do a quick demo on pose matching into a montage or idle loop? So at the moment, you can't pose match into a montage. The montage has to do the matching. That is a feature that I'm kind of working for. That I'm kind of working towards doing later. You can pose match out of a montage. But I don't have any animations in this project right now to show you, so sorry about that. But I will. I am still making more tutorials and videos, so if you want to see that stuff before buying, then just yeah, wait for the tutorial videos to come out, and I'll show that stuff. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stuff and this is my experience with all asset development, is that there's going to be so much stuff that people want that I didn't anticipate, and that's part of the continued development of Motion Symphony. There's a lot of stuff even that I want to add to it, but I feel like the core is ready to go. Okay, something like existing loco into door animation or stationary action that you would hit from multiple directions and distances. Yeah, as I said. Okay, so you're talking about... Alright, so motion matching and Motion Symphony right now, you're probably only going to use for locomotion. If you're going to trigger actions, you're probably still going to use just normal montages. There is an action system under the hood in Motion Symphony. I've kind of disabled it for initial release because I want to see how things go first, because I'm not sure if that's the ideal solution. As I said before, I want to look at making a post-matched montage, so something to do with the montages. So you can just play it to a slot and it automatically kind of matches the pose. However, that idea came so recently that I just, there's no way I'm going to have that out yet. Any chance we could see an example with AI following a waypoint system using MS? I can't show you in this tutorial. It's going to take way too long in this video, but I will do a tutorial on that again. Basically, you're going to have issues with foot sliding, I'm not going to lie, because right now we're using root motion, and this is just the nature of animation. It's really got nothing to do with Motion Symphony. You're going to have to combat the foot sliding with several techniques like foot locking. You're going to have to try and make sure your animations kind of match up and all that. But basically, at the end of the day, the way you do AI with Motion Symphony is you use the navigation path to basically get an input vector for the trajectory, and then off you go. You plug that in, and at that point, the animation becomes completely cosmetic. You don't use root motion, obviously, for that. But yeah. there's a lot of, yeah, it's a lot of stuff that you still have to do, and that's why I say it's not a plug and play thing. I provide the tool, and which is the actual motion matching, the animation synthesis, and yeah, put it in your project any way you like, and add whatever procedural things you need to do to get it to suit your game. Okay, let's see about the strafing. Where was I? I'm totally losing my train of thought. That's fine though. I'd rather answer questions because, you know, that's the most important thing. Okay, trajectory generator. We need to change its mode. I've actually forgotten what the variable is called. So if we have a look at the details panel for the trajectory generator, we have an option for mode somewhere. What? Okay. I've made a fool of myself here. So I'm not seeing it at the moment. Okay. I'll have to come back to this one. Again, anything I do, like, I'm doing this all live, so it's a bit unscripted. So I'm sorry about that. I will do tutorials on all of this stuff. But basically, on the trajectory generator, you can change the mode to behave differently, and then we would get the strafe. But since I'm struggling to find what I did with that, if that is a bug, it will be fixed really soon. I'm going to be very quick with updates at the start of this thing, so just be aware of that. So I will actually just go and do the sprinting instead, because that will be more simple. As I said, I probably should have done that to start with. So for the sprinting, I will actually add these to the existing run animation. We won't do a separate state for that. I will add those here. Sprint. How long are you planning to hold your tool up to date? Oh, this is a long-term thing. So years, pretty much. It's just at the very start, I'll be like updating. Like if there's a bug that I can fix straight away, I will submit updates, you know, that day, sort of thing. You know, within reason, right? Because obviously, I'm a person. I'm a single developer, solo developer, and I can only do what I can do. Okay, so an Unreal inertial blending can be used for blending between clips. Is it also used for motion matching? Yep, that's right. I did show that previously. If you just came in now, inertial blending is what I recommend to use for motion matching. It's the most performant and it gets a good result. So where was it? Here we go. Inertial blending, inertialization node. There it is. So I hope that helps. Yeah, so I plan to support Motion Symphony for a long time. Motion matching for Unity, I've been supporting for about 1.5 years now, and I'm continuing to support it and add features to it. Motion Symphony, I don't see, like, there's so much that you can do in this space of motion matching and animation techniques that I don't see myself putting it down for a very long time. But yeah, updates, when I can do them, usually, as I said at the start, it'll be quite frequent, and then it'll become more regular, like regular intervals, but it'll still be, you know, relatively often. Okay, back to where I was. I feel like I should just ask questions in these because it's so hard to talk and do the stuff at the same time. I'm not so good at the multitasking. All right. Are you planning to port to UE5 as close to release as possible? Wink, wink. Absolutely. It really depends how much has changed. In some ways, it might not be that much different in the animation graph space. We'll see. I have no idea. I don't have access to it. But yeah, I do want to support UE5 as soon as I possibly can. That's pretty important to me. And then, yeah, because I mean that's not going to be far away, right? So okay, sprint. All right, I had some of these. I think these are all. There we go. I got my sprint animations. Nope, hang on. I have to do something on my sprint animations. They are not set up properly with root motion. So I shall edit these. Asset actions, bulk edit, root motion. All right, we want to enable and force root lock. Alrighty. Here we go. I've changed my folder structure recently, so I keep getting lost. Okay, so this should work. There we go, running along the path. So here you can see me trying to sprint in small spaces, almost breaking my knees and getting really, really tired. But that's beside the point. So we got some different plants and all that. So we're going to add these in. Now, the difference between these is they're going to be faster, so we're going to have a longer trajectory. And it could work with just that. However, you generally want to separate the animations by traits, and we can set traits by adding the trait names here, but we do need to register them in the project settings. So I'll go to project settings, and down the bottom we go to plugins, and we have Motion Symphony, and I've got a trait here called walk, which isn't being used at the moment. Actually, I might just leave it there. I'll add another trait called sprint. So this is if you want to have like different kinds of animations in one motion matching node. Okay, so now that I got that there, I could basically go to all these animations and I can add a trait to it. You can add multiple traits and call it sprint. Now there's also another way you can add traits. If you don't want to add it to an entire animation, you can actually select the animation, add a tag track, and I could just call this traits or whatever. Doesn't really matter. I can add a tag section, and we can choose traits, and we can actually tag sections up, and we set the trait name here. So that's pretty useful. That's good for when you have two things like in the one. So I might have some acceleration or deceleration animations. I can tag half and half. Like a sword swing, is there a way to have a bunch of those and then have MS pose match? Pick the one that gets the sword the closest to the target. So that's something really similar to motion matching for Unity. I have that sort of thing, pretty much exactly that, and it's an event system where you can it's basically like having stuff in here, and you add in a tag, something like this, an action marker, and then you play an animation from that. Now, Motion Symphony is not going to support that at release, and the reason is because I want to use montages to achieve that, because that's kind of the way in Unreal Engine 4 that you play those kinds of animations. You play it to a slot, and therefore you don't have this crazy, the logic just becomes all hidden. So my idea there is to have all the animations in that montage, and then it picks the section to start. Now, yeah, as I said, that's not going to be in at release. It is something that I do want to do. It is a feature in my previous motion matching things, but yeah, not straight away. Okay. You can, however, have things like pose matching to pick animations. So in the animation graph, we do have some other utility nodes. Now this isn't exactly what you're talking about. I understand that for sure. But let's just, as an example, I'll show you all the different nodes. Motion Symphony. Alright, so motion matching node, pose matching node. So this is one animation, pose matches to one animation. It basically picks the starting time of the animation. We just have a multi-pose matching node. So this is the same as a pose matching node, except you can just keep adding multiple animations and it'll pick the animation you want. So this is really good for like a stop animation. If you're not using motion matching and you're having a graph, but you don't want to have heaps of states, like one for a left foot stop, one for a right foot stop, you could add them all in. You could add in your walk stops, your run stops, and you just add all those animations here, and then it'll pick the right one and the right time to start to get a good pose match. So there's those. There's also a transition. A transition matching node. Transition matching node. So it's exactly the same as a pose matching node, except you can get it to sort of automatically pick which direction you're going. So the direction you're coming from and the direction you're going. And then there's the distance matching node, and that is, that's not the same at all, but this is experimental, so keep in mind that. Okay. Sprinting. Go back to our running locomotion. And I believe there might be some sections we need to tag out as do not use. So I did set the traits. I'm going to just set that on all of these. Sprint. On all of these sprint animations. So you can see why in some cases you might want to split out your animations from your motion data into different states. This is fine, but this list could be much bigger if you're having everything in here, and it can be a bit overwhelming. Up to you, really. It's personal taste how you want to do that. With the sprints particularly, because you can't fit them all in one because they take more space to actually act out. You're gonna have even more files, whereas with the walking you can fit a lot into one take. So I'll just quickly add all these. Not too many questions today compared to yesterday, so but yeah, if you have any, feel free to fire away. Getting lonely here. Actually, that's fine. Okay, so we set up those traits. Now I'm going to turn off optimization because I don't want it to do that for now, just for time's sake. And let's just leave it as is and pre-process it. This list is like in FilmSlim plugin. It's awful. No selection option. No selection option. Yeah, look, I'm not particularly a fan of it myself. UE4 editor code is something that I had to learn, and it's actually quite difficult. I do want to improve this a lot in terms of having categories and stuff like that. But yeah, at the start, it is what it is. Yeah, so sorry about that. It is what it is in this case, but you know, that is something I definitely want to improve, even to the point where it's like modular, so you actually have separate modules that you plug in here, or even like foldouts in categories. And that's what I eventually did in motion matching for Unity. It's just that doing this editor stuff was such a big learning curve for me, coming from Unity into Unreal Engine 4. So yeah. Yeah. But that's also why I like to separate it out a bit. But yeah. So let's save that. So I've pre-processed it. And now I need to set up the traits. Now I believe if I hit play, we shouldn't see any sprinting animations whatsoever, because obviously they're tagged with traits, and only the traits that are ever input into the system are going to play. So we need to do something about that. So if we go to our animation graph, there's two things we're going to need to do here. Is licensing with source code / compiling on consoles an option? Yeah. So you can get the source code. So if you are, so it's only going to be officially on the page, on the store page. It's only going to be officially supporting Windows. However, source code is available. You just need to send an email to me. The email is in, you should be able to access the email from the developer page, right? And you just email to me your invoice, and I'll give you access to that GitHub. You can clone it. You can even do pull requests if you want, and then compile it yourself. Okay, a bunch of questions coming in. Is it possible to motion match swim movement? That would be very interesting to me. Yes, if you have the animations to do it, then yes, you can. Just keep in mind the animation requirements. From what I've found, pretty much any kind of motion is possible as long as there is motion. If there's not much motion, so like standing still or turning in place, then it works really well. If the animation's really still, then you probably want to transition to another state and just do that. With swimming, you might want to match the hands instead of the foot. I'm not really sure. Whatever bone drives the motion, you'd have to test it out. So any other questions? So will source code be available as well with purchase so that people can add, just tweak things if needed? So yeah, a lot of plugins actually always have source code that people don't realize, and it's actually stored in your UE4 folder. And I'm not even sure how to opt out of it. I know you can, but I always include source with mine. So if you can find that, it's actually where it is installed in your Unreal Engine folders. It'll have the source code there. But also, as I said before, send me an email with your invoice and I'll give you access to the GitHub repository, and you can, that's probably the better option anyway, because then it'll stay up to date. And if you're there as well, you might even get updates, out of sync. It's easier for me to push to GitHub than it is to do an Unreal Engine, Unreal Marketplace update. Just wanted to say I'm glad to see all the modularity you've put into us. Yeah, thanks. I like it this way. I ended up doing that in motion matching for Unity based on user requests, and I want to do it even more, particularly as I said with these lists here. I'm not 100% happy with it, but it's functional enough that it works. For now. Otherwise, I'm going to be delaying the release of this for even longer. How would one set up a quadruped with MS? What kind of quality could we expect? Maybe an example at some point. I'd love to do an example. I just don't have animations. So if anybody has animations or has mocapped a dog or a cat, then get in contact with me. I'll happily do it. I'll show you what you would have to do. So in the motion matching config, you've got this. You've got the bones that you choose. Now you would probably, I would imagine, for an animal you would have both the left and right front and back foot for a quadruped, and that might be it. You might have another centralizing bone, so you can just add those bones there. So like in this case, hand, and you could do this for a human as well, but I find it's generally unnecessary. Keep in mind also, you can have different configurations for different motion matching nodes. So for example, this is just going off topic from what you just from that question. Just something worth knowing is that, so each individual motion matching node can have a different config because it's completely separate, and they can still match between each other because of this special node at the end of the graph, the motion snapshot node. So this motion snapshot node captures all the bones that we're matching across everything, across all our motion matching and pose matching nodes, and it sort of records it. So that enables pose matching and motion matching between states. Okay, so how could one, yep. Can you quickly discuss stride, acceleration, or slope warping combined with motion symphony? Yes. Oh, sorry. So let's have a look at this. I'll just play this animation. Okay, what have I done? I changed something here. Oh, right, of course. What did I do? This was working a moment ago. Did anybody see what I did? I'll come back to that question in a second. Let me just see what else there is. Do you have a license in place for the source code, or is it covered by the marketplace? It's covered by the marketplace. I pretty much have to queue that way. Is there a store? Is there a store globally? It's only on the marketplace for now. It's probably not out yet. Still, it's waiting for UE4, so Epic Games, to approve it. So there's that. Okay, what have I actually done here? So yeah, it should be globally available. But yeah. So this is fine. Let me see if walking is fine. Walking's not fine. Output log. Motion matching mode failed to update properly. Setup's not valid. Okay. What have I broken? Oh, sorry. Of course, I added this config, and I didn't pre-process. I don't actually want that anymore. And let me just double check this is okay. Yep, this is okay. Okay, cool. Silly me. Of course that made it fail. I'll just save those. There we go. Okay, we're back. Okay, so onto onto that question about strider and like that sort of thing, stride warping. So with motion matching, you can only ever play the animations that you currently have. So in this case, I've got walking animations, and they go this speed. There's no like slow walking. There's no fast walking. If I run, then I have running speed. So there's nothing in between. And if you do want something in between, then you're going to need stride warping. You could change the play rate, that is, you know, supported, but I wouldn't do that. It just wouldn't look good, right? Speedy animations or slow motion animations, like you're getting frozen. So if I want to slow walk, I would stride warp this to be slower or faster, and then I might even want to go faster than this running, and I might stride warp to have that as well. Now you are going to have to do some work in terms of the movement, because the movement's going to be modified. But yeah, so that is stride warping. Slope warping is going to work exactly the same. Any sort of grounder tool or IK that comes in after the fact is going to walk the same. There's probably not too much of a use for bank warping or acceleration warping in this case, because motion matching kind of does that itself. So like you sort of get the acceleration, and like when I slow down, you get the deceleration stuff anyway. So it's kind of built in, so not really much of a use in that case. Same with banking, you get this, you know, if you have the animations, you get the banking. I do want to look into using orientation warp to like fix errors, to help it be more less reliant on root motion. Hello, Peter. All right. So, yep, I think that is that question answered, and we've averted the crisis of it not working. So this is pre-processed. I've set up the traits. We need to go into our character here and get rid of this. I'll change this to sprinting. So when we press this, it's going to sprint when we're holding it down, and it's going to go off sprint. The other thing we need to do is we need to change the trajectory. Because actually we don't need a boolean for sprint, because we're not using states. We need a trait. So what we do is we create this, like, it's like a query. So it's called a motion trait field. So type motion trait field, and it can store multiple traits in one. It's basically a bit field. So we can say required traits, and I can just clear. I think it's called clear, or is it reset? Motion trait field. Add traits. Sometimes I forget my own functions, especially the blueprint ones. So we want to add a trait to the required when we add it. So we want to add the sprint trait. Now, you would probably use a more efficient way of doing this. So there's different functions for this. So add trait field, you can add it from another field, or you can add trait from, well, you can add a whole list of traits, but again, you're using strings. So what you probably want to do is at like load time, you want to cache these traits and then not use the sprint, but I'm just showing this for demonstration purposes. And then for when we stop sprinting, we want to remove the trait. I'll remove that trait. Okay, and we are going to need to required traits. Hang on, which? Okay, I think I've already got something for this. So required traits, I've already got that there. So I'll use the one that already exists. Okay. And we need to change the trajectory length, because the trajectory's got to go faster, right? So I think it's roughly 600. So we'll go set max speed. set it to 600, and I'll set it back to, it's roughly 400. This isn't the speed of the character. I mean, it might be the speed of the character, but this is more feeding into the trajectory generator, and it's going to make it longer when we sprint. Let's see if this works. There we go. It's working. So you can see as I press shift, it changes the speed of the trajectory generator and it gets longer, and it also triggers that trait. I feel like, yeah, it's probably about 600. Now there's one thing I could actually do to make this a lot better, and it's actually with the source animations itself. And that is to actually create a loop. And it's one thing I just haven't done because I wanted to just use this raw. But in your projects, I highly recommend creating loops. So for example, I've got this, not turn continue, it should just be a neutral, what's the name of it? I named it, got it somewhere here. Start, stop, neutral. I didn't add it. There you go. That's interesting. Well, basically, I'll show you for the, I don't have it with sprints either. Basically, what I'm saying is you want to add in a run loop that you have cut up. You might want to have 3 or 4 cycles. I highly recommend that just for variation. And then you actually make it a looping clip. And then you check this loop button on it. And that will make your straight runs much more consistent. But yeah, pretty much here we have managed to, we've added the sprinting pretty easily. So a full, different type of locomotion didn't take me long, especially since I'm talking through this. It's kind of hard to do at the same time, and that's working pretty well. Does the acceleration work very well? I'd need to check that. So it could be improved a little bit. I might do that before I end the stream, unless we have more questions. So we'll go into here. There's a lot more we can do once we add the animation. So as I said, you get 80% of the way there really quickly. And then there's more you have to do. There's some manual work you have to do. So we'll go into here, accelerations. I'm looking for the accelerations. I didn't name these. I named these very quickly, so I probably could have named them a bit better. No, counter plants, counter turns, plants, no, snake, wide, loop, sprint forward loop. Oh, okay, I actually have a sprint loop, but it's only one loop though, so it's not very good. I'll check loop on that anyway. Okay, here we go, start, stop. Yeah, here we go, here's the sprints, here's the accelerations. So this is where we need to tag things differently. So I'm going to remove the sprint tag from the whole animation, and I'm going to add a track for, so traits. I'll say run traits, and I'll add another track for sprint traits. How you do these tracks is up to you. It's purely cosmetic and for organizational purposes. And we add in that tag trait. Now let's see. I'm actually going to add another one called do not use. So I do this for all my animations. You'll notice for my running ones, I've already done it. I've done a lot of do not use posing just to cull extra poses that aren't necessary. It muddies up the set, and I like to keep it clean. Oh, some more questions. Would love to send you some dog mocap. Might not have enough coverage because dog. If you were interested in doing a quadruped non-biped example, maybe for another day. Yeah, absolutely. Send it through and we'll see how it works. I mean, I'm sure it could work, even if the coverage is bad. It could, it'll work somewhat, so it'll be an indication. So if we put curves in the animation, such as speed curve that reflects the speed of the animation, are we still able to access those curves while using motion matching? Absolutely. Curves are supported. Notifiers, anim notifiers are supported. It works exactly the same way. Just, yeah, on the source animation, you can just add curves and notifiers, and they will all trigger at runtime. I asked because I'm considering how to use stride warp with Motion Symphony. Yeah, that's exactly it. Exactly how you do it. All right, so I'm going to also add some do not use tags. So you can see what I mean here by motion matching gets you to 80% of the way there really quickly, and then you've got to add these tags, and this can be time consuming. But I feel like it's really simple work compared to setting up really complex animation graphs. Okay, so this is like a walk to sprint. Interesting. So in this case, because this is in the running node, I'd actually would do not use tag that whole loop round. What's this next one? It is sprinting to decelerating to walking. So we're not doing walking in this case. So now we got running. I think that was accelerating from run to sprint. So this is where we want it. Okay, so the acceleration starts about here. So just a little bit before I'll start this, and we'll just expose the acceleration part, and I'll do not use the rest of that. And then on the other side we have sprinting, decelerating. So I'll probably allow that from pretty much the beginning there. And then I'll do not use the rest of that. Oh, there's another one. Hang on. What is it? That was just another attempt. You could use multiple. Redundancy isn't bad, but yeah, I'm just going to use the one. So basically just these two sections. And yeah, again, in this case, you probably would be a bit more choiceful with your animations, and you'd actually cut this up. Like, there's no point having all this here if you're not going to use it. Though you can just add it to the other animation as well. So what do we have? So in this section, we've got sprinting. So actually, considering I am tagging out I forget that train of thought. So this is sprinting. So because we're accelerating into sprinting, that whole acceleration animation needs to be tagged with sprinting. So I'm going to put sprint here. And this section is decelerating to running. I might actually just start it, yeah, here. It's decelerating into running, and I don't have a trait for running. That's just the default, so I'll just leave that blank. You might want to put a trait for running, but in this case, we only need to tag up the sprint. I'll pre-process this, see if it's any different. It'll be interesting to find out. Save that. It does take a little longer to save because of the number of poses. So we'll sprint. Could be a little bit more responsive. And the way that we would fix that is we would increase the speed of the trajectory for one, and we might even modify the calibration a little bit. That's another reason why sometimes you might want to split it up into different nodes, is because you can have different calibrations. You can also favor things, so yeah, it works pretty well. Cool. I might leave it there. Now, with motion matching, there's a lot of work you can do on it, and each sort of iteration of work and improvements to tagging and improvements to cost multipliers and stuff, it just makes it better and better. But as you can see, we set it up pretty easily in one go. There's one last thing that I do want to show you, and that is this cost multiplier. Now, if you know how motion matching works, it's all about the cost multipliers for... it's all about finding the lowest cost pose, or the closest pose to your current one. So we can actually affect this for specific animations by adding a cost multiplier to that animation. And we're basically saying, hey, I like this animation, I want it to play more often. And I often do this with loops. I give it a cost multiplier of about 0.85 to 0.9. And this just makes the loop more likely to play than other sections of animations. Now we can do that on the whole animation itself, or we can also add a track. and we can add up and we can tag up specific poses with cost multipliers, and then just put the cost multiplier in there. So yeah, that's another useful feature that I use quite heavily to improve the outcome. Man, those stops into different directions, acceleration motions look so freaking amazing. Oh, thanks. Yeah, like it's motion matching. Like it's just like it's the nature of motion matching itself that makes it possible. Yeah, it is really cool. I agree with you. No surprise there. So yeah, I might leave it there. We got the sprinting done. Bit of a disaster trying to get the strafe, but I'll again, there will be tutorials where I'm not doing this all live, and I'm ready for it more coming. They're not all out yet, but they'll just keep going. Hello, Anders. So yeah, if you've got any more questions, I'll stay on for just a little bit longer if there's any more burning questions that you want to ask. But otherwise, I'm pretty much finished here. If there's anything you want to see, you want to talk about, we didn't talk about mirroring much. We didn't talk about optimization very much. Yeah, and there's a lot of examples. So like my main focus has been motion matching. How many dollars? That's not something I'm going to talk about on the stream. I talked about it last time. Basically, my philosophy is that it is what it is, and but yeah, not going to talk about that on the stream. Sorry, you'll have to see for yourself. Part of the reason why it is the price the way it is priced is because I want people to think. I want people to think about what it is before they buy it. I don't want impulse buys. Like I'd rather people know what they're getting and actually decide, yes, I do actually want this, than to just see a guy running around with high quality animation and going click buy instantly. Maybe as a business person, that's counterintuitive, but I'd rather happy customers than people that bought something that they didn't realize what they were buying. So that's part of it, but also it's a big plugin. Put a lot of work into it, but yeah. Cool. Any other questions? No, it's not that much. No, not that much. It's probably like it's just there's more expensive assets on the marketplace, but yeah, it's more than $100. I'll put it that way. So it's an expensive impulse buy. Maybe if you're rich, I certainly wouldn't impulse buy that. But yeah, look, again, especially for those who haven't been here the whole time, I linked a whole bunch of documents. So the documentation here is quite comprehensive. Have a look through it and see what the features actually are, because this is going to be what the plugin is. And I've gone through a lot of effort to do this. There are also the tutorials, but the tutorials aren't as comprehensive as this documentation yet. So yeah, have a look through this. Again, I'll link it one more time. There. Yeah, that's the right link. So check that out, especially the FAQ. A lot of frequently asked questions there answered. The mirroring profile is interesting. Could you show some more of it? Yeah, sure. So I've been mirroring, these animations have been mirroring the whole time. So it's actually runtime mirroring here. And the reason why I do this particularly with these animations is because with raw mocap, you can have some left and right bias. When you mirror them, it doesn't do that. So here's the mirroring profile. You basically have a skeleton, and there's all these mirror pairs. Now, these mirror pairs are created separately. I mean, they're created automatically, so you can create a mirroring profile. I'll just show you quickly. And open it up, and we choose our skeleton. We right click and so auto map. So this is going to auto map the bone pairs based on your left and right affix. Again, all this information is in detail in the documentation. And it's basically a list of rules at runtime for the system to mirror the poses. Now, that's where the automation ends. There is potentially some manual work. I find every skeleton is different. So you might find it won't mirror properly just with the defaults. You might have to go to specific bones and change some of the settings. I had to do that for the mannequin, and the mirroring profile that comes with the example project has all those edits in there, so you can take a look at that. it is something I want to automate in the future as well, like completely automate. But I just haven't had the time, and I'm not sure how to do it at this point. But yeah, so that is the actual mirroring profile. When we come to motion matching, we set the mirroring profile in the motion data asset, and because it needs to pre-process those poses mirrored as well, and then it's also going to use that mirroring profile at runtime. For all other nodes, you actually set it up on the node. So if I go to, if you have a look at the idle, I've got a pose matching node, you can see I've enabled mirroring and I've got the mirroring profile, and that's just so we can stop either left foot or right foot forward in this case instead of just the one way, and it'll automatically pick which one that is. Okay, is there a similar system in Unity? Yes, there absolutely is, and it is made by myself. It's called motion matching for Unity, and unless you're talking about a specific feature, in that case, it's very different engine in terms of the animation system. It's like night and day between them. But Unreal Engine actually, it enables a lot of the things that I can do with motion matching the way it is. So the animation graph and the groundwork that UE4 has for animation just allows me to do much more. You're not going to get, for example, this ability to have motion matching in states in Unity. It's actually, I don't even think it's possible. If it was, I would have done it that way. Maybe it will be in the future because they're working on new animation systems for dots. But anyway, that's beside the point. Getting a bit off topic there. Okay, folks, I better go. I thank you all for watching. If you have any other questions, you can ask me on Twitter. There will be a Discord page that the link. There's no link in the documentation at the moment. It's sort of like a placeholder coming soon thing. But there will be a link to Discord, and you can get verified on there and get support through Discord. I'll let you know when that is all set up. So yeah, without further ado, thanks for watching. I'll see you around. I hope that was useful for you.